Welcome to Front Porch Friday and a brand new Front Porch Friday series that I've entitled, You Might Be a Foolish Woman If, okay? This is going to be a series that's going to help you understand whether or not you're a foolish woman. Real simple, isn't it? You know, the Bible has a lot to say about fools and foolishness and warns us about behaving foolishly and about allowing those people who are fools, biblical defined fools, from influencing our lives in a negative way. And so we're going to go to Scripture in this series, and we're going to be able to identify what it means to be foolish and what it means to be a fool, so that you and I can become the kind of women that are, of course, not fools, but are also the kind of women that are wise. You know, I have 3 goals for this series, and the first one is that you be able to identify what a fool is and what kind of behavior, how they talk, how they act, so that you would not ever want to talk or act or think or behave like that. So we're going to identify what a fool is and what foolish behavior is. But that's not the only thing. What we're going to do is, I hope, when we see these areas in our own lives, and we all will, okay, we all will, when we see areas of foolishness in our lives, that we will identify it and that we will replace it with wise behavior, okay, and grow in wisdom. That is my second goal for this series. And then my third goal is that you and I would be able to identify foolishness in the lives of others in a way that we would not be tearing them down, okay? I'm not saying to be judgmental, but to recognize it for what it is, so that it does not influence us, okay? It does not tear down our faith. And so that when we have the opportunity, especially if you have children and friends and family that you can influence, when we see foolish behavior, that we can use our influence, our wisdom, God's wisdom, to be able to help them, and that they wouldn't get ensnared in foolish behavior. None of us wants a foolish child, do we? None of us wants a foolish grandchild. None of us wants to see our friends suffer like fools will suffer. And so we want to have this so that we can help others, and so that also they will not be detrimental, negative, foolish influences on our lives, so we won't get dragged into foolishness, okay? Which is a scary place to go, and we'll see that. You know, some of us, though, and I'm one of them, listen, when I think about this word fool and foolishness, there's a verse, there's a quote from Jesus in Matthew 5:22 that comes to my mind, and I think, you know what? Am I prohibited from even using the word fool? You know, Matthew 5:22, Jesus is in that great Sermon on the Mount, speaking there to the multitudes, and he says this. He says, "Whoever is angry with his brother without a cause shall be in danger of judgment. And whosoever shall say to his brother, Raka," and that word Raka was an epithet that they used back then, which meant like you good for nothing. Whoever shall say to his brother, you good for nothing, shall be in danger of the council. But whosoever shall say, thou fool, shall be in danger of hellfire. Well, that, you know, makes me think, am I not even allowed to use the term fool, to even say it, to even identify foolish behavior, to call myself a fool, I've been acting like a fool or whatever? I'm not even supposed to use that language, and especially not supposed to ever think somebody else is a fool or say someone else was behaving foolishly. Is that what that means? You have to look at the greater context of this passage, and really the immediate context, because just in the verses before he spoke about this, he spoke about a higher law. And he was speaking in Matthew chapter 5 about the sin of murder. And he said in Matthew 5:20, just 2 verses before, he said, "I say to you, unless your righteousness surpasses that of the scribes and Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven." He said, "You've heard that the ancients were told you shall not commit murder, and whoever commits murder shall be liable to the court." He said, you understand that murder is a punishable offense, that it is a sin. You clearly understand that that sin will be punished, that you will be judged. But he says this, "But I say to you, everyone who is angry with his brother," and many translations add that phrase without cause, because this is a causeless anger, okay? There's not a righteous anger here involved. This is just somebody that you are mad at with no reason to be mad at. He says whoever is angry with his brother, and that means your fellow man, okay? It doesn't just mean your brother or sister in the Lord, okay? Whoever is angry without cause, whoever has hatred is what it is, that hatred that sees, he says, that's the same, he says, that's equal to murder. You'll be judged for those kind of murderous thoughts, those hateful thoughts, those sometimes that are manifested by the things we say about people, by the epithets that we use, which voice this inward hatred. He's saying that hatred is as bad as murder. Jesus is saying there's a higher law. He says this all throughout the Beatitudes of this Sermon on the Mount. He is not saying that the word fool is what does it, okay, by calling somebody a fool, that is going to be bring you into judgment. No, he is talking about an anger that is without cause, that is against someone else, that is equal to he says, murder. You know, in one passage in the Sermon on the Mount, he said, whoever lusts in his heart after someone else, after another woman, he's committed adultery. What he's saying here in this passage is, okay, maybe you haven't murdered somebody, but have you hated someone and thought hateful thoughts? Have you even voiced those thoughts? Have you slandered? Has there been malice? Have you been name calling? Have you torn somebody down with your mouth without a cause? He's saying, listen, that is wrong. And he said that is punishable, just as murder would be. He is not saying that you cannot use the word fool. You know, Jesus himself, in this very same book, in Matthew 23, verse 17 and verse 19, there are two episodes there that he called the Pharisees and the scribes fools, okay? He said, thou fool, thou fool. He also said in Luke chapter 24, as he was, after the resurrection, as he was on the road to Emmaus with two disciples, not two of the 12, but two people who had placed their faith, who were followers of his, who knew about the crucifixion. They didn't recognize him on the road there to Emmaus. They were downhearted. They were brokenhearted. They were saying, well, we thought he was the Messiah, but I guess he wasn't. And when he heard them talking about their faith being tested and about how they must have been wrong and all this. And during that conversation, before they recognized him for who he was, the resurrected Lord, he said this to them, to believers. He said this, O fools and slow of heart to believe all the prophets have spoken. Okay? Jesus used the term fool. Now, I'm not saying we should just throw it around like it's no big deal, because we want to understand what it really does mean, okay? We want to understand it so that we don't behave foolishly, so that we are not fools ourselves, and so that we do not get entangled with and influenced detrimentally by those who are fools. Well, girls, in the next few weeks, we're going to talk about all about the different types of foolish behavior and how we can recognize it in our lives and in others' lives, and how we can be used by God to grow in wisdom and to not only eradicate foolish areas in our own lives, that we can have an influence for wisdom, for godly wisdom in the lives of others. So I hope you'll join me for this study. In the weeks ahead, we'll get real specific. And you might just find out, and I know as I've been studying this, I found out some things about myself that I might be a foolish woman if, okay? We're going to do this. It's going to be a great time together. I may step on a few toes, because you know what? My toes have been stepped on first. The Lord, as I've studied these passages, is speaking to me just as he's going to be speaking to you. And I look forward to sitting here with you next week, next Friday, as we continue this series, You Might Be a Foolish Woman If. I'll see you then. Bye, girl.